So you want to go drag racing but don't have a 7-second monster? Then bracket racing is right for you. Bracket racing is the great equalizer that can level the playing field. It's about strategy and skill, not about sheer horsepower. So I'm Eric, this is my 1982 Chevrolet El Camino. Let me show you how this game is played. In bracket racing, you're not racing to be the fastest, you're racing to be the most consistent. And there are two parts of that. First off is the reaction time. The second part is the dial-in and how well you drive your car on the top end of the track. So here's the deal, there are two critical parts. Nail the tree, nail the dial-in. The first part is the reaction time. That means you want to get your car out of the staging beams the moment that light turns green. The better your reaction time, the better you're going to do down track. The next part is you want to have your car run as close to the dial-in as is physically possible. That way, that gives you the smallest total package. Now in bracket racing, the package is your reaction time plus how far off you are from your dial without going under, and that gives you your total package. Now, if you go under that dial-in, that's called a breakout, and you lose automatically unless the other guy breaks out too, at which point it's who breaks out by less. For those that say bracket racing is boring, have clearly never tried it. It takes intense focus to cut the best light, and you got to be on your game to make sure you're running the number on the top end of the track. I've had races decided by thousandths of a second. It's incredibly exhilarating, I'll tell you what. When you got both cars coming to the stripe, nose to nose, who's going to get there, who's going to get it done, that's a lot of fun. So what that means is anyone with a consistent car can be competitive. I've had my 1250 El Camino put on win lights against 7-second altereds, 8-second dragsters, 9-second door cars. I've run them all. 20-second Ford Mustangs with a straight 6, raced that too. That's actually a lot of fun. In ET bracket racing, we're going to get 2 passes tonight to see what the car is going to run. Let's go do those. I noticed on this run, the car was acting up just a little bit. So after a pass, you get a time slip. The time slip has all the information as far as 60 foot, your reaction time, all this information on it. This is all very important information you're going to need to be able to determine your dial. Now, I like to keep track of my time slip data on a logbook. It makes it very easy to look back and see any trends. What's the weather been doing? What am I seeing the car doing? So, if you want a copy of the logbook I use, check the description. There's going to be a link to that logbook where you can get yourself and keep track of the data that you collect. So kind of like I hinted to, I'm not just keeping track of on-track data, I'm keeping track of weather data too. This helps me make good decisions as far as what the dial-in is going to be doing. If the weather changes, if it's getting cooler through the night and I'm starting to see my car pick up, I can start to see a trend and kind of get ahead of that a little bit. I noticed on this pass, the car did the same thing again, just worse. So after 2 rounds of eliminations, I've got a pair of time slips here. This one is a throwaway run, but realistically, you would have 2 runs here to determine what your dial-in is. So what I'm gonna do is, this was a better run than that one. That one had some problems. I think I've corrected the issue. So it went 1273, come on, we can focus. It went 1273.6 on that first run. So I am very certain this car will be able to run that 1273. So I'm gonna put a 1272 on it because I'm pretty sure it'll run faster and it'll give me a little tiny bit of cushion, but that's totally okay. Alright, that one looked a little funny for a lot of reasons. That was an example of a breakout run. My opponent was going under his dial. He was dialed 12 flat, 1200, and went 1198. So 02 under his dial. Now, the reason that looked really strange is a couple of reasons. One, I let off the gas. Second, he had actually let off the gas prior to getting to me to scrub a little bit of speed to make it easier to judge the stripe. As soon as I saw him do that kind of funny motion, I knew there was something strange going on. When he pulled up alongside me and it was clear he was going to pass me, I backed off the gas to ensure that, one, I wasn't going to go under my dial, and two, if he was going to get there, I was going to just let him have it, let him take the stripe, and break out, which he did. Now, on an interesting side note, in my almost 20 years of bracket racing, I've never seen somebody do what he did. As he's coming up to me, he came off the gas to slow himself down just a little bit to make it easier to judge. I've never actually seen anybody successfully pull that off. So instead of coming up on me at like 10 miles an hour better, he came up alongside me about 5 mile an hour better. That's a pretty advanced trick that I don't expect anyone just starting to be able to pull off. But the dude did it, and hats off to him for trying that. But secondly, I knew what he was doing, so I just kind of pushed him out, let him have that breakout run so I would advance to the next round. So that last run, an absolute disaster, and I took myself out of the race at the very beginning. I went red. What that means is I left the stage beam before the green light was lit. I left the stage beam before the green was lit by 2.5 thousandths of a second, 0.0025. I was almost right there on a perfect light, but I left too soon, went red, I lost, and the car was acting really funny, so I just got out of it. Now, in hindsight, had I kept it green, that would have been my race to win, because the other guy was very slow on the reaction time, and the car was way off his dial. All I would have had to have done is get to the top end, let off by the 1,000 foot, take the stripe sensibly, and that would have been mine to move on to the next round. But that doesn't exactly completely explain what the heck is the car doing. It's doing some dumb crap. Basically, it's got this funny sag in first gear, and it just doesn't feel right electrically. Everything's a little slow. So when I was loading the car up and I was tying down the back half of the car, since I have my battery relocated, I have to have a cutoff switch. I noticed that the positive wire that runs from my battery down to the cutoff switch had all but completely pulled out of the connector. There were all of 3 strands of copper wire holding it together. The fact that those 3 strands of copper wire were enough to make the car run and do what it did, it blows me away, because it shouldn't have done what it did. It should have just kind of fallen on its face and not run much at all. So I'm going to get that fixed, and the car will be back to business. So aside from having a nearly broken car, it'll get fixed pretty quick. But yeah, that's kind of the intro to bracket racing. Thanks for joining me. If you want to see more, I've got a lot of other bracket races I've been to. Check those out over there. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you later.